Have you ever had a creative project in your head that was dying to come out and you were dying to just like get started on it? Well, that was the case with Old Town for me. You see, I've always wanted to have Old Town in my Sim City world, but I actually couldn't really execute on the vision because my edit in game mode was blocked from Create a World due to a shopping spree that I went on the Sims 3 store. Now, for those of you just discovering my channel and just discovering this video, my name is Michael and I want to welcome you to Sovereign Gaming in Life Sims, the YouTube channel where I build worlds, lots, and share my thoughts on video games and the life simulation gaming space. Now, today we are finally getting started on Old Town. And by finally, I mean I'm getting started on Old Town and building the lots here. And I've been absolutely dying to get this project out of my system now that we are back in Sim City. As I'm sure that you guys know, Old Town really originates from the first Sims game with the introduction of the Unleashed expansion pack. Now, I'm not too sure if I've got the tier review video out on Unleashed yet, and I will be doing a review on that on my channel, but that'll be another video for another time. But one of the most charming aspects of the Unleashed expansion pack was the expansion really of your starting neighborhood in The Sims 1, and that expansion included the addition of Old Town. Now, I didn't know it then, but Old Town was something that I really enjoyed as a concept. It took a lot of inspiration from the New Orleans area, so that New Orleans French Quarter area specifically. So you've got that whole French architecture going on, that iron wrought architecture, I think it's called. I'm not entirely sure, so I'll do a little research when I do my next audio recording so I can correct myself then. But yeah, sorry to break the fourth wall there for you. But yeah, that's really part of the image of Old Town. It's just that it was the founding area of Sim City, and that's the lore that I chose to borrow from. And that's gonna spill over into its architecture as well. Now, I've got 4 of these lots that are the same size, and that was absolutely on purpose in my Create a World series, and so you can watch that Create a World Old Town episode if you haven't already to see what my macro vision was for that. And yeah, these lots were designed on the on same sizes on purpose, and that's because I wanted to have pretty much the same building repeated 4 times. I'm just gonna end up changing the color. That's the plan anyways. Now, plans can change as you know, and as you can probably see, like there's uneven ground. So even though I might copy and paste the same building 4 times over, it might not actually translate properly. So if it doesn't translate properly, then I will have to adjust and make note of that and probably change up the architectural style of the buildings there. But that's a good problem to have in my opinion, because if it forces me to diversify it a little bit, then that's fine. But I would really like to have 4 of the same buildings repeated 4 times over on this section of Old Town, because as we go more northwards, which is where the ocean is and all of that, I will be changing up I'll be using different French architecture buildings inspired by the French Quarter of New Orleans there. So there is plans to actually change up the architecture. It's just that I don't want to do it right now. I just want to have that repetitive architecture throughout, just changing the colors for the repeated buildings. I am taking inspiration from a specific building in New Orleans for this building and for what I'll repeat 4 times over. And so I'll put it up on screen here, just a little more minimalized here, just so that you guys can see like exactly what the vision is and what we'll end up executing. And yes, I complete the build this time round, which is why the episode is longer. So, you know, it bothered me so much that I had to split up the Studio Town build into 2 different parts there that I am just trying my best not to ever do that again. But yeah, that's not something that I am doing this time. This time we completely finished the build. And as you can tell, probably from the title, we are actually going to be building some apartments. Now, some simmers out there really like building mansions or suburban houses or like single family homes or even like cottages or something like that. I personally specifically love building like mid-rises and apartment lots and condos and all of that. That's kind of my forte and something that I really love. Now, don't get me wrong, I can throw down when it comes to a mansion, but I especially love building like mid-rise structures, and even like okay, maybe it's just multi-housing complexes in general, but I also love building like duplexes and triplexes. Now, part of what makes them so enjoyable for me is that I can actually make them function, and I can do it pretty well. So I was very excited to get started on this lot, to say the very least. Now, when it comes to the actual inspiration from this lot, as you were able to tell on screen there, there's a lot of balconies, there's a lot of shutters, there's a lot of balcony plants, hanging plants, and all of that is absolutely going in. So that's why you kind of see the structure the way it is because in order to create balconies, you really have to create the floors first and all that jazz. So that's exactly what I'm doing here, is I'm just kind of outlining the structure. And I was also using the Old Town picture itself from the Sims 3 store as part of the inspiration as well, because you can actually get the Old Town items, and I did that, which was one of the many reasons why my editing game mode was blocked for me from Create a World, but now that's a funny story. And yeah, so I use that a lot for inspiration, specifically on the color. I really like the white and the green that they used, and I was just going to kind of stick to that, plus using the red brick from the pictures that I showed up a little while ago from the actual New Orleans building itself. So that's what I was going for in terms of a color scheme. Now, with those arches, and this is something that I'm always very conscientious of, is how it actually functions in the game. Can someone else outside of myself play the lot and not get confused by its functions? And the reason why I'm saying that is because of the arches on the ground level there. And what those arches really depict is that you have freedom to really move anywhere. Any sim can just drop in and go through the arches and whatnot. In New Orleans, I bet you they close those arches. They're like shutters or whatnot, or they probably close the shutters that are just like hanging outside of the arches there and lock it for the night or what have you. I'm sure there's a way that they do it there. I've never been to New Orleans, so I really wouldn't know, and I would love to visit one day. Yeah, I would love to try jambalaya, like real jambalaya and real blackened catfish. Okay, so aside from that, yeah, the reason why I wanted to mention that is because that was a function that I really had to take into account. What the arches within that main body of the building also suggests to me is that we need to take four-sided architecture into consideration. So that means designing the building so that it's accessible from all sides. And that kind of proves a little, it kind of trips me up just slightly towards the end, because I had to figure out a utilities room in the end for the garbage and whatnot, because everything else was just looking too nice to just put in a dumpster somewhere. So again, that's a problem that you'll see me solve towards the end of the episode. But yeah, with the arches here, what that suggested to me and what I ended up doing is I ended up kind of building like a body within a body in terms of like what the actual building functions as. So on this ground level, there will be dummy shops that I end up just making hidden rooms, because this is a residential apartment lot, not an actual shop. So I don't mind hidden rooms, and I'll kind of get into that a little later on. But yeah, I decided to put in a couple of shops in the ground floor there. Of course, I had to make the actual entrance into the apartment block itself, so that goes in there as well. But there's quite a bit of space that kind of suggests that it's an open air place, and it's more like an extension of the sidewalk as opposed to just being a building that has a strong barrier to it. So if you're out late at night in The Sims, if we're really going to put ourselves into our Sims shoes here, you could leave the bar and wander down Old Town Way, and you can like wander through these arches, like sit on the bench and whatnot, and just kind of have yourself a good old time there even after the shops have closed. So that's really the idea here, is just to make those arches make sense, and to also create that privacy barrier for the shops and for the residents where it makes sense. So that was really the idea with the functions on the ground level. I just want to speak a little bit more on the other 3 buildings that'll be using this exact building, only recolored into different colors. And because the next one, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be like a fully restored, like full-on French apartment, like you'll feel like you're in Versailles. And yes, I do use the Versailles store items. Listen, I'm a little older in terms of being a gamer and all that, and so I've worked a career that afforded me to afford some of those sim points. And plus there are other additional resources out there as well. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So yeah, there's all of that. But anyways, so yeah, the next building that we'll be doing is more like it would be the penthouse version of what you could fit in one of these buildings, and it's going to be very French inspired. You know, I use a lot of the Versailles items in that next apartment, so that's what's going to be coming up next. But the other two lots are going to be completely different, and that's by design, because as we go northwards on the Old Town, not Old Town Row, I'm calling it Old Town Way, but as you go northbound on Old Town Way, and yes, I do add in addresses, the functions are actually going to be a lot more commercial, and there's going to be a lot more community lots there, because we do end Old Town with the Roaring Heights roller coaster, as well as a seasonal festival lot. The festival grounds from The Sims 3 seasons. So we end with those 2 lots there, which are huge crowd drawers. And then there's also, of course, the Old Town Station lot as well. So as we keep going northwards, there are more community lots there, but I do want like an element of residents is actually living in Old Town. And really, there's only 2 lots that do that. And it's going to be this artist studio that we do here, and then also that penthouse, that French restored penthouse that I'm talking about. And I will save more on that story a little later on, because I've got some cool lore for that. So yeah, a big part of the problem with my Create a World series is just that I'm not able to really get down into the specifics in terms of the storytelling of Old Town. And so here we're really able to tell the story of a restoration that failed, and that actually kind of had a happy accident in that it was able to offer itself as a studio apartment for an established artist, or maybe even a young couple that's just kind of working their way up. The end price of this studio apartment is more than what you get. I think what you get when creating a new household is only 20,000 simoleons. This one is ends up being like 40,000. So it's not a starter apartment by any means, but it's certainly something that can be affordable if you play your game right. And earning simoleons in The Sims 3 is certainly not something that is hard to come by. So yeah, that was really kind of the idea here. Like, I knew this wouldn't be a starter apartment, don't get me wrong, but it's also a very spacious studio, and it contrasts the common areas, and you'll see that shortly with how luxurious the common areas feel. And then you get to your studio apartment, and it's like more industrial and rustic. So it contrasted pretty epically, in my opinion, and I really like that contrast. And when I get to doing the next penthouse, like the French restored penthouse, it's going to use the same common areas. So you've got that continuation in terms of like what a restored piece of French architecture and interior design looks like. So it's continued from this building to the next, and then the differing story is just like how one failed in terms of its restoration endeavors, and then the other one succeeded in its restoration endeavors. So yeah, that was really like kind of a story that I really wanted to tell with this, and I wasn't able to do so in Create a World just because that editing game feature was blocked. And so unfortunately what ended up happening is it ended up fracturing what I intended to do with that series, which was balance the Create a World designs with the editing game designs. Again, as I mentioned in the last episode where I finished up Studio Town, I think it was a blessing in disguise, because I know for a fact that your Create a World will slow down as soon as you start building lots on there, and that's where I think that the crashes start to happen, because I experienced no crashes while building my SimCity world. Now granted, I do again have a gaming computer, so please take that into consideration, but Create a World for the most part was smooth sailing. It was just when I went to export the world that things started shit started hitting the fan when I tried to export it. So yeah, that was really the only problem, and in retrospect wasn't I could have ran into so many more problems, if I'm going to be completely honest. So you might have seen me just kind of fiddle around with the cameras. I was actually looking at what would be the best view, whether it would be the north side of the building or the south side of the building. I determined that the best view would actually be in the north side of the building, because you get more of an ocean view, you get better city views, whereas the south side of the building, you get views of the industrial port, of the SimCity harbor, and I didn't think that those were good views. Or at least I don't right now. I don't anticipate those to be good views. So I wanted to put the actual apartment unit itself, the studio unit, on the north side, and I also wanted it on the highest floor, so the 4th floor with its own balcony. And yes, it is this very spacious studio apartment. I love how it turns out, and that's kind of the whole purpose of it. And when I export, when I make the SimCity world available and I start exporting these worlds, I will put in the description or in the title that indicating whether it's a studio or a 1-bedroom or something of the sort, because I'll have duplexes and single family homes that kind of look the same but function differently at the end of the day, and we'll get into that much later on in this series. But for now, I decided that the best place to put the actual studio unit would be on the north side. Now what you're gonna see here is you are gonna see you're gonna see me try to build the common areas out, and you're gonna see me do it all on the north side. And then when I actually get down to it and I get up to that 4th floor, I suddenly realized that it needs to be on the south side for the common rooms, because I was taking up all of the space on the north side. And I did this off camera, but I even double checked the views on the south side to see if it would be okay for me to place it on the south side. I just hated the views there, so I was like, we got to do this right. It's got to be on the north side. So everything that you see me doing here, I actually end up deleting and placing back on the south side, making the common area on the south side of this lot. And you'll even see me suddenly have it decorated to be that French colonial design as well, using quite a bit of the items from the Versailles expansion, the Versailles store DLC. Speaking of which, I know that you guys are going to ask me about the stairs and the curved stairs there. That came with the Abandoned Mansion store DLC. Now again, I was a gamer with a job at one point in my life, so this is where all of the store stuff is coming from. It's something that I worked hard for, and I've worked all of my life really, except at this point apparently. And yeah, the curved stairs came with the Abandoned Mansion. It was one of the lot. It's a lot there, and then it's got 2 versions. One is an abandoned version, the other is an actual full version. And I'll give you a fun little story there. So firstly, it comes with those curved stairs. Love the curved stairs. I think that they're epic. The problem with the curved stairs is that they will clip into your regular stairs. You even saw it when I kept the skins the same and all that. It'll just look slightly off, and it's a little annoying, but whatever. I am not about to break my game trying to fix that one. But the curved stairs are just beautiful, even when you do it on one side, which I ended up having to do. And yeah, so the Abandoned Mansion and the Restored Mansion, those 2 lots were something that was actually judged pretty harshly by simmers everywhere. And I get why it was judged harshly. I mean, I should, one of these days I'll do like a tier reviewing of all the Sims 3 source sets, but it was judged very harshly, but it came with a lot of great items, a lot of great objects, and the stairs and the railings that came with the stairs, I thought were very well done. It also came with like screens and screen doors, which is something you'll see me do later on when we get into some of the future neighborhoods. But I love the screens and the screen doors and even the busted ones. Like you even saw me do it in the studio town. I used like this boarded up window, and that came with that abandoned mansion set. I think that there's like a really niche place, a really niche place for it. And in one of my past iterations of Sim City, because I've tried creating this world before, it's not nearly as beautiful as it is now, but my past iterations, like I actually used the abandoned version of the mansion as a supernatural hangout, kind of like, you know, there's an abandoned mansion that all these supernatural characters just kind of wanted to hang out and party in. So there's a place and a time to like use those kind of really niche builds, and I really enjoyed the items that came with it. So personally, I really liked it, but I can see why people hated it. I just think that for the most part, maybe folks just haven't really discovered a purpose for it. And that's kind of what I originally thought about the Versailles set as well, is that I never really saw a purpose for it. And then I started thinking about Old Town and what I wanted to achieve with Old Town, and suddenly it's like, okay, I can really see myself using that. So yeah, that just kind of goes to show you that if you don't have an idea in mind, you won't find it useful in a way. Okay, maybe that doesn't make sense. Take from it what you will. Take whatever vibes with you. What's disappointing in the common areas, unfortunately, is that I wasn't able to fit in an elevator, even though I was on, when I was working on it on the north side, I wasn't able to fit it in the south side. Like it just kind of clashed with each other. Now, some simmers like play with move objects on. I switch it on and off because at the end of the day, I want my sims to actually be able to like move throughout the building. So if they're blocked from using the elevator, like what's the point of having the elevator, right? I'm not entirely down with just decorating stuff just for the sake of decorating. I also want things to function too. So, you know, I ended up just kind of giving up on the elevator for the south side, so I just made it stairs. I also ended up like extending the, I guess, I don't even know what to call them. Like I ended up deleting the floor even more just to make the staircase seem a lot more grand. I really wanted to emulate that grand French architecture. Like this was a beautiful landmark within the city, like way back in the day when it was first founded. Like this was original colonial French architecture. So I really wanted to try to emulate that grandness. Now I'm not the best when it comes to decorating with French colonial architecture. In fact, that's actually a little out of my wheelhouse. I don't even know what kind of things I'm good with. I'm decent with the modern stuff, like modern interior decorating. So this is like slightly out of my comfort zone in a way. I've done like some gothic stuff before, like when doing mansions. So yeah, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But yeah, ultimately I do want this to function like an apartment, and you would have seen me do the common area there. I don't like the idea of having Sims just kind of wander in to walk up the stairs and knock on your door directly without doing the call box, which is why I just kind of blocked off that area and gave it quite a bit of extension there. So the idea there is just to block off Sims to prevent them from just knocking on your door directly, and for them to have like a secure barrier, like there be a sense of security and that they have to be let in first. I could have done that just by placing like the call box outside of the just outside of this inner core, but I didn't feel like that was realistic and what could be realistic for a building like this. Like I think that you would go through a set of doors and then inside you do the call box and then somebody lets you up or buzzes you up, as opposed to just like walking through one of the arches directly to the call box. So yeah, that was kind of the idea with that there. I've also placed the mailbox out there for for multiple households, for all of the rooms that you see these stairs just kind of leading up to. Those are going to be hidden rooms indeed, and I'm going to place some stores and actually make them NPC stores towards the end of the video as well. That's one of the last details that I actually managed to do. And yeah, so it will actually function like a real apartment. You'll have real neighbors, and I don't assign any roommates or anything like that, because those are just annoying. Like, that function is just broken in this game, and I don't want to download a mod for it. The way that I see it, like, the apartment lots in The Sims 3 is just... Okay, let me back up a little bit here. This lot will be classified as just a residential lot. It's not going to be classified as an apartment lot. We good on that? Okay, cool. So your Sims will be purchasing this lot, or they'll be purchasing the unit. It's sort of like the difference between buying a condo and renting out an apartment, right? So essentially your Sims will be buying this unit that they will be living in, which is a studio unit. And yeah, and the big reason for that is that apartment lots just don't function properly here, because normally if apartment lots actually function properly in The Sims 3, and I'm not about to download mods to deal with that, because that can really break your game, mess your game up. But if apartments actually function properly, I would be making a lot more apartments classified as apartments. But because they don't, essentially everything is a condo, right? So that's kind of something that I just wanted to mention here. So yeah, your Sims will be owning this, and you know, when thinking about this realistically, I think that this would be sold as a condo as well, just with this studio apartment here. So yeah, I'm not mad at the game functions for that, but yeah, that's going to be how it translates into the game. Is just that your Sims will actually have to buy it, which is why it's going to cost like 40,000 if I remember correctly. We'll see at the end there. When decorating the common rooms, it's mostly the floors and the wall paper, I guess, that just like really helps to emulate that it is French architecture, which is why you'll see me do the floors the way that I've done them, just with that border and then with the marble interior there. The only like leading decorating piece was that carpet that I put in. It's technically classified as a carpet. It came with the, what do you call it? It came with like the wedding themed set. I think it's a lot. It's a set for sure, but it came with that themed set, and I just placed it down just to check it out, just because I haven't seen it for a while, and it just looked perfectly. It went to the perfect spot, so I was just like, I'm gonna leave that. In the beginning, like when it comes to designing this actual artist studio loft, I just placed in some lights there just as placeholders, just so that I can actually see what I'm doing. And you'll see that one of the first things that I've placed was the Murphy bed, and that is because I want the Murphy bed in there. And when it comes to important pieces of furniture or architecture or anything of the sort, I try to do that thing first. So in this case, because I wanted the Murphy bed in there, I wanted it to I needed to make sure that I had room for it, so I just kind of designed the studio loft around that. Now, the whole idea with this studio loft, like I mentioned earlier, is that it's more industrial. It really contrasts the restored French architecture with an industrial sort of like messy theme to it, and I absolutely love the contrast. It's a bit of a mindfuck if you ask me. And like if you were walking through all this French architecture on these like beautiful marble staircases, and then you come into this industrial like messy artist studio loft, it would just, you know, it's just like such a different world that you're walking into. So yeah, I really loved how this turned out. And I'm not entirely like sure on the color schemes of it, but yeah, in my head, like I kind of imagine like if two Sims were to live in here, one would probably be an artist, of course, and so they'll need room to do all of their art. But the other Sim, on the other hand, I thought could be more of a, you know, a plant lover, someone who's got more of a green thumb. And so in the past, like I have designed apartments for like Sims that just really have strong green thumbs and just want to, you know, grow their own plants within an urban setting. And so I would make that apartment a lot more green and have a lot more plants within it and all that. So I was kind of like, in my head, I was working with a ratio that this is like 80% the artist studio and 20% of the green thumbed sim. And in the future, I will redo an apartment where it'll be the reversed ratio, where 80% of it feels more like it's for Sims who want to garden in the middle of the city, whereas 20% is their partner as an artist that just is kind of their name is second on the lease. So yeah, with this studio artist loft, I started with the bathroom because bathrooms are my least favorite thing to do, if I'm going to be honest, in terms of decorating and all that. So I just wanted to throw in a tub, throw in a toilet, throw in the sink, throw in everything else, call it a day, move on. I did change up the tiling of the wall as well. I believe I ended up using a brick, like that white brick, and I really liked how it looked. And throughout this whole studio loft, I really wanted to put in like subtle pops of green here and there, just to kind of bring together that green element of gardening in the middle of the city and whatnot. So I do little pops of green here and there, just kind of where I felt made sense and would complement the different plants that would, you know, sporadically pop up once in a while throughout the studio loft. And yeah, I was very happy with how the studio loft all turned out. There are some choices, like in terms of the woods and all that maybe I have to like go back and redo one day. But for now, I was really happy with the way everything just kind of turned out. And when it came to the actual balcony part of it, I really turned up the green in terms of that. So that gardening sim that is second on the lease has their little space outside where they can just kind of grow their own potted plants if they so choose, and a nice little space to hang out. So I was very happy with the way that this artist loft turned out, and I especially love how it contrasts the restored French architecture. It really communicates that the owner ran out of money at the door to this apartment. So yeah, that's really how it all kind of came about. Because of the industrial nature of this artist studio loft, I used a lot of the furniture that would like never really be considered. Like I used a like a couch that's pretty much on crates there. I also used some of these 70s, 80s, and 90s stuff, like the TV, for example. I thought fit really nicely in there. So it just kind of feels like a conglomeration of things that this sim would have thrifted from their store and just really like turned their little studio loft into the perfect place for them. I also added in a lot of clutter. Like I really wanted to communicate that this is an artist's studio. Like you were walking into somebody's home and workspace, and when that Murphy bed comes down, it is time to just kind of chill. And you'll see me struggle a little bit when it comes to the Murphy bed bedding and all that. I think I make a final decision on that off camera, so sorry if you missed the final change there, but you'll see it in some upcoming shots here and there. So yeah, in order to really communicate that this is a rustic place, I used specific counters, and I even used the old stove. So again, I really like that just because it like communicates that, you know, the owner of the building couldn't even afford a new stove. They dumped all of their money in the restoration, and they couldn't even like rent out this apartment or sell this apartment. Because they ran out of money, so they had to keep the old stove, which I absolutely loved. So yeah, I also you'll see me like the walls again are barren because of that too, and we even keep the original brick, which is something that is very sought after in New York City, which is something that I find very intriguing, that people go crazy over original brick. Personally, I would too. If I ever lived in New York City and was looking for a place that had the original brick that was in good condition, absolutely. I've never been to New York, so I wouldn't know what that's even like, but I felt that kind of citywide attitude towards the original brick here, which is something that we saw in the port build, because that use the original brick. Like I've even saved like a skin for it with the coloring. So it's even the same brick that was used in the port build that I did a month ago at this point, or a couple of months ago anyways. So yeah, I put in like pops of the original brick because I really wanted that industrial feel. Now, when it comes to the next build where we do the penthouse French architecture restored version of this, the success story, I suppose, absolutely no brick. That will not be present at all. But yeah, here we have the brick, and yeah, I really enjoyed the fact that it's just such a contrast to all the common areas that you would have experienced walking up to your apartment unit and whatnot. And eventually I do actually, I think that you'll see it on screen pretty soon, if not already, that we really get into some adding in some of those artist easels, and even the carpets that are laid down, which came with the Sims 3 University. Those carpets and all of the clutter items from like the Sims 3 University really just kind of help to add into the fact that this is a messy space. This is a workspace. This is where an artist comes to get messy, and it's a little more chaotic. And yeah, when it came to the easels, I added in 2 easels actually. I just kind of wanted to depict that this artist, like the artisan, could even host art classes, painting a bowl of fruit, which is the most basic and cliche thing ever, but you know, gotta start somewhere, and there is nothing wrong with painting a bowl of fruit either. So the one thing that kind of surprised me in this build is that I had space for the sculpture machine, and I wasn't originally planning on adding that in, as I kind of felt like that would be almost unrealistic, but I decided to add it in. I think that normally in artist studios and all that, like I really considered making this a 2-level unit, but then I just decided against it. It just didn't feel right to me. I will do like a 2-level studio eventually. I just don't know when that will be or where I want to even have that. So stay tuned for that build, because I don't even know when that'll be. But yeah, I'll do like 2-level lofts and all that. But yeah, the space in here is just incredible. And that was another thing that you'll see me do a lot, is you'll see me switch between move objects on and move objects off. And that's just really to be considerate of the actual wayfinding of the Sims. Like, I'm not even entirely sure that the wayfinding around the Murphy bed is going to work out. Especially with the dresser the way that it is and some of the other clutter items that are around it. But I didn't want to sacrifice style for that one function there. But I'm pretty sure that Sims will be able to like move it up and down. And you'll actually see the Murphy bed go up, because I didn't do any testing, but the game decided to put it up, so whatever. So yeah, I was really conscious of the different wayfinding that would go about with this, because I still want Sims to actually be able to live their full lives using the slot, and I don't want other simmers to like have to play the slot and then have to rearrange everything because something is conflicting with one thing or another. I'll probably I'll likely do some playtesting on this before I ever export this lot or export it to the exchange or anything of the sort. Actually, I'm not doing anything with the exchange. Don't ever bother even looking for me on the exchange. I'm not going to be there. That thing's messy as hell, and I'm not patient enough for that. But yeah, that's kind of I really love how this artist studio turned out, and you know, even extending out onto the balcony, you can really tell whose name is second on the lease. This would be like a unit that someone would inherit, you know? Be like the owner's son lives here, or the owner's child lives here. Their aspiring artist child lives here, and they can't afford to sell the apartment. It's such a funny story anyways. Even though I would like Old Town to really be that mix of upcoming artists and maybe even, you know, some more wealthier or affluent families and what have you, I really only have 2 lots that I am dedicating to residential. So it really has to be represented specifically and minimally, because there's just so many other lots within SimCity. And when it comes to the scale of the game and all of that, like you really have to you really have to filter down and decide like what's important and what you want to represent where. And in this case, I feel like this represented that an upcoming artist would not be able to afford this. Let's be real. This would represent like an established artist, professional, or even like a young couple that's got really good jobs and are really into art and gardening and all that. So yeah, if you're double income, no kids, this is probably the spot for you to just kind of hang out. Although like I'll have more apartments and lots dedicated, or condos I guess, dedicated to people who've got double income and no kids. But yeah, this one is just like really the charming interpretation of it, and it would represent who I would imagine would live in Old Town these days, like those established artists, maybe some affluent families that come from older money and all that. If you think Old Town, think old money. Speaking of which, I did want to also share with you guys some of the direction that I want to take Old Town in. So we've got more of those lots. I've mentioned that there are a lot more community lots than there are residential lots. Essentially, there are just 2 residential lots, and I did that by design because most of the residents are going to be living in the Midtown, Uptown, and the starter neighborhood as well within the urban island of SimCity. And yeah, it was by design because I feel like I want more people visiting Old Town, and to actually, I just want more Sims visiting Old Town, not living in it per se. And, it doesn't mean that we can't have notable tributes to the residents of Old Town. I mean, there's going to be, like, if we look at Old Town and what came with it within The Sims 1, like there's some really great NPCs there that I plan on doing some tributes to, and those like tributes would include WC Friendly, who's like that jazz saxophone player, who's actually a reference to another older jazz musician. I completely forget his name, so I do apologize for that, but I would love to have a community lot kind of dedicated to him, and I'm not going to say too much there. And then there's also Miss Lucille as well. She was that psychic who was around, and she was certainly, like, I didn't really interact with her so much when I was playing The Sims 1, but I would really love to make like some sort of a bakery or a cafe just kind of in her name, and just kind of make that tribute to her psychic offerings there properly. So yeah, I feel like those kind of themes and those kind of stories deserve to be told in Old Town, and it deserves to be told in the Old Town that I am presenting here within my own Sim City, and to give it all a proper tribute to such great games that have come and gone in the life simulation space, and that is really The Sims 1, and I guess in this case could be The Sims 3. We'll see what happens in the future. There's no telling what may happen. But yeah, I'm very excited for being able to tell all of those stories. I'm even like, now that the game is actually loading properly and I finally have access to actually create these lots, I am so excited to just tell you guys, to build these lots and to tell the story of SimCity, because there's only so much storytelling I could have done within Create a World that it was just like starting to frustrate me at a certain point. And I know for a fact that I did kind of, I don't want to say like rush through it towards the end of the SimCity Create a World stuff, but I was definitely getting real tired of it, and I needed the change, and I knew that creating lots would help to keep the excitement alive. The version that you guys will end up receiving of my SimCity world will not be the version that you'll see in the Create a World series, because I have to do some edits there. Namely, the roads that are underneath the bridges need to be changed, because cars will pass under the bridge and then suddenly read that they need to be on the bridge road because it's a road, and it just looks messed up, and I know that you guys would hate that. So I've got to make a version 2 or something before I actually export it and make it available for public consumption. The lots won't change though, that I know for a fact, because especially in the starter neighborhood, I actually loaded into the game, not into my world of course, but into the game to get specific measurements for what I wanted to achieve within those lots. So there's that. But yeah, I'm very excited to finally finally execute on the vision of Old Town, because I think that Old Town is just such a lost gem within the Sims lore. And yeah, there will be some tributes to Mrs. Crumplebottom as well, as she is one of my favorite NPCs. And with Agnes Crumplebottom being available to play as in The Sims 3, it's it's actually kind of funny how that all kind of worked out. She's no longer an NPC, technically speaking, I guess, if I got the lore right there. As you'll see on the screen, I just kind of finish up the outdoor balcony part of the studio loft here, and I'm just finishing up with these planters. I kind of wanted to make them different shapes and colors and sizes, just kind of like, the Sim went thrifting for these. They went to the consignment store and this is what they got, and it's all different. It's all mixed and matched, well, not matched, but it's all mixed up and different colors and shapes and all of that, and very unique. Every one of those planters was unique. And yeah, I kind of like telling a bit of that story, that they went thrifting for those planters. We are pretty much at the end of the episode for this apartment loft build. This is one of the bigger builds here, and honestly, like when looking forward to the rest of Old Town, they're mostly bigger builds because there aren't a lot of rabbit hole buildings that I plan on using here, and so everything has to be built from scratch. And even though, like with the which one was it? Not the port, but with the cement factory, like with the criminal hideout, I was able to like get that lot done really quickly because the rabbit hole building pretty much did most of the work for me. So very happy with that. But yeah, I'm not complaining at all, though. I'm just thankful to have the game here, and I always knew that Old Town was going to demand a higher creative lift anyways, so I'm very happy to actually start doing this and to actually start telling the story. And so yeah, in the next episode, we are going to look at the actual French architectural restoration in its full glory and to see what kind of a penthouse I can make from that. So please stay tuned for that episode, which will be coming out probably the week after this one releases. so there's that to look forward to. It's going to be a bit of a higher creative lift for me in terms of the interior designs and all that, but because I'm using the same kind of a building and just changing the color of it, I think I should be fine as well. So I'm not entirely too worried about that either. So yeah, that really about does it for this episode. If the tours aren't playing already, please stick around for the tours that I save for the end of the video, just to kind of show you what the final results of everything actually looks like. And yeah, I just want to take a moment here to say thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you being here. I hope you've enjoyed this build and aren't judging me too harshly in terms of my taste when it comes to interior design. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and if you've been enjoying this series, feel free to like and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And yes, thanks again for sticking around, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, and have a good one.